NFL Week 13, 49ers and Eagles, the best remaining game on the regular season schedule. We had the Eagles and Chiefs 2 weeks ago. Big game, good game. However, both teams could have played better, and to me, the rain did affect the quality of play. Interestingly enough, we do have rain in the forecast in Philadelphia. I'm checking 70% right now for this afternoon, or you could even say almost early evening game with the 4:25 kickoff in Philadelphia. Why I'm excited about this game is because these are clearly the two best teams in the NFC, if not the best two teams, the top two teams in the NFL. It's a rematch of last year's championship game, a game we really didn't get to see play out because of the Brock Purdy injury. I'm not taking anything away from the Eagles. It was just very disappointing as a football fan. I'm not just saying this as a 49er fan. It's just very disappointing as a football fan that we didn't get to see these two teams duke it out at full, or at least close to full, strength. You never want to see that happen. Just like, would I have liked to have seen a Jalen Hurts injury? No way. And I hope this coming Sunday we won't see any significant injuries and that we won't see any weather that really alters the game or makes it very sloppy. That didn't slow down the Bills and Eagles last week. I gotta say something about that. That was some finish. And the kick by Elliott, I don't know if you're ever going to see a better field goal than that. I've never seen a better field goal than that. 59 in the rain? Wow. Wow. Well, let's just go through the positions first, and then we'll get into strategy. How do these two teams match up? Quarterbacks. Who has the advantage? Brock Purdy's been outstanding, but I have to say, advantage Eagles, Jalen Hurts. Running backs. Swift versus McCaffrey. Advantage 49ers. Christian McCaffrey's the best running back in the NFL since he came over to the 49ers, and he certainly is this season. Wide receivers. This is close. Wide receivers and tight ends, but especially Dallas Goedert most likely not playing. I haven't seen anything about him playing. I say edge 49ers, though you have great talent with both teams. Offensive line. No question, this is the Eagles. The 49ers offensive line outside of Trent Williams and Aaron Banks is average at best. The Eagles have the best offensive line in football. Defensive line. Difficult. I'm going to go edge 49ers. Nick Bosa, Chase Young, Eric Armstead's a little banged up. Javon Hargrave and company versus Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Hassan Reddick. I mean, he's listed as a linebacker, but he's really a defensive end. Josh Sweat, Fletcher Cox, and Brandon Graham, though Fletcher Cox may not play either. They both have depth. It's about as good as it gets. 49ers and Eagles with pass rush. Linebackers, this is clearly favoring the 49ers with Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw. I would say that's the weak link for the Eagles. Yeah, I'm not counting Reddick as a linebacker. Secondary, outside of Darius Slay, the Eagles' secondary is okay. 49ers secondary is the weakest part of their defense, though I would not call it a weakness. I'll say slight advantage to the Eagles, but it's close. Special teams, I'd go Eagles. Coaching. Now this is interesting because both these teams lost to the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. different games, different situations. You have a very conservative coach in Kyle Shanahan. With Nick Sirianni, you have a very aggressive coach. Kyle Shanahan calls the plays. Sirianni is more hands-off, and he leaves it to his coordinators. So it's hard to compare. But right now, in this day and age, I like the more aggressive coach. I say, again, slight advantage to the Eagles. Though I'm not saying, X's and O's, Kyle's better. But it's not just about X and O's. So let's look at some strategy here. So the Eagles, early downs are important for everyone, but if they can get to short yardage situations more than any other team in football, that's where they want to be because of the shove, the push. And no one does it like them. I think they want to test the 49ers run defense early. That's going to be the Eagles' strategy. Test the 49ers run defense early with that great offensive line. What are the 49ers going to do? Well, what they want to keep the Eagles out of those third and fourth and short situations because no one has figured it out. There is no solution to it. Forced turnovers, get off to an early start. It's more important for the 49ers to get off to an early start than the Eagles because the Eagles can come back. And we've seen that the last couple of weeks. It's very critical for the 49ers to get off to early starts. When they get off to fast starts and they score first, especially touchdowns, they win. And I think it's a very important game for the 49ers to attack the middle of the field. First and foremost, you keep Brock Purdy protected, and there's no more of these tight ends blocking Hassan Reddick. It's one thing if they're chipping at him as a secondary or an additional blocker. That's one thing, but we all know what happened last year. Keep Brock Purdy upright, keep him protected. He's going to have to get rid of the ball fast. Though the Eagles defense had one long game against the Bills last week. I think it's a little different when you're coming off a win, isn't it? If they lost that game, it would be worse for them. But when you have the emotional lift of a big win like that game, you probably should have lost. It gives you a boost. But there's no doubt they're tired. They're tired coming to this game. And they are banged up. I feel that they need to attack the 49ers, the middle of the field. And I keep saying it a lot of weeks, but this to me was a big George Kittle game. That's what I said last year going into the championship game. We didn't get to see it. I'm saying the same thing here. Target the linebackers and put the safeties in a situation where they have to cover George Kittle. And Christian McCaffrey is receiver in the middle of the field. And I do believe the 49ers are going to have some success running the ball. You can't just go by the stats. My eyes have told me and I've seen that you can run the ball on the Eagles. I saw it last week. I've seen it in other games. Josh Sweat versus Trent Williams. And Aaron Banks on that left side. The 49ers are going to attack that and try to stay as balanced as they can. And I think they believe they can run on the Eagles. Like I feel the Eagles probably think they can run on the 49ers. It's going to come down to the trenches. Who's better up front in the trenches? And if you just, I went through all these positions, but when you take just the offensive line and the defensive line, the Eagles are better. They are the better team. The 49ers win at almost all the other positions on offense and defense. But it may be a difference between special teams. Let's talk about that too, and I'll get back to some of these other areas. But you have the two Jakes, Moody and Elliott. It could come down to a field goal. As the 49ers get conservative when they get a lead, they just got to keep scoring. Right? You got to keep your foot on the gas. You have to have a heavy foot. And don't allow the Eagles to come back if you can establish a lead. And then the other big matchup, we talked about Trent Williams on one side of the line, but it's that McKivitz versus Reddick. And will they have to keep Kittle in as a blocker? I'd rather see Kyle Juszczyk in there so Kittle can be used as a receiver. Tim Ryan was saying his key to the game was setting the edge defensively. I mean, Lane Johnson versus Nick Bosa. Or it could be Chase Young, or both. They may be giving him different looks. What a great and big matchup. And then they got Jordan Mailata on the other side, who's just a mountain of a man. I mean, he's 370 pounds. He's just a giant. And Jason Kelce versus Eric Armstead and his former teammate Javon Hargrave. Big matchups here. I think you need a big game out of Fred Warner. One of those Fred Warner takeover games. If Fred Warner has Dak Prescott's number, but let's see Fred Warner versus Jalen Hurts. You've got to keep Jalen Hurts in the pocket. It's not to say he can't do damage in the pocket. He can. But I'd say he's more dangerous when he gets out of the pocket, and he can run in a number of ways. He can get outside, but he can also get within the gaps. He can run inside and get away. His escapability. So most likely you need to put a spy on him. And the good news for the 49ers is they got that in Dre Greenlaw. To be a spy on Jalen Hurts, but also, like Tim Ryan said, setting the edge defensively to try to limit him from escaping, but also with the actual running backs too. Another huge matchup is Brown versus Ward. A.J. Brown versus Charvarius Ward. Big matchup. It's going to get very physical. I mean, this is what we like about these games, because there's not a lot of them. You have such physicality with both of these teams. This is the way football should be played, and we don't get to see it very often. As Ward did very well last week against DK Metcalf, and DK Metcalf went off tonight. I'll talk about that Cowboys Seahawks a little later here in this episode. But, how do we see these two teams match up when you have very different strategies with a coach who's more conservative versus the hyper-aggressive coach? The Eagles are more confident with their kicker than the 49ers. Moody hasn't been tested. Wishnowski, we talked about last time, is a serious weapon as a punter. Really is. I mean, who's going to play the cleaner game? To me, the Eagles can afford to turn the ball over once or twice, and they could win. The 49ers, I'd say no more than once. No more than once, because they can't get behind. They don't play well from behind. Who stops the run? That's one I've been asking myself again and again. If there's a weakness of the 49ers defense, is they have a pass rush just as good as anybody, but can they stop the run when they need to? For the Eagles, their weakness is, I think the 49ers want to try and isolate those linebackers. I mean, get those linebackers matched up with Kittle and McCaffrey. See if they can get Deebo Samuel involved early. Just get Purdy comfortable early. I mean, those are the weaknesses on defense. And these two quarterbacks, they're very good, but they can make their mistakes. I mean, Jalen Hurts is not playing on the level that he did last year, but make no mistake, he's still playing very well. Brock Purdy, he's made some mistakes, but, in many ways, this is his real rookie season. You could say it's like more, at this point, perhaps it's more fair to say this is more like the beginning of year 2 when you're just thinking about football, professional football experience. But what makes the Eagles tough is they do the little things right. We talk about the Cowboys in the big games. They don't do the little things well. Well, the Eagles are the opposite. They do the little things right. They may not play a perfect game, but then again, who does? They may make some mistakes, but when it really matters and when the game is on the line, they get it done. And Jalen Hurts is just a flat-out winner. I mean, I'm a Hurts fan. And I respect his game. And I do think he's the real deal. When you look at both of the quarterbacks, Hurts and Purdy, there are similarities. There's similarities actually in size. Purdy's a very underrated athlete. You'd actually call them both a little smaller. But they're winners, and they're winners at a young age. They can get it done. But have they been tested in this way, that they have excellent supporting cast? I mean, they should be good. When I say with the 49ers, Purdy has been so good, it's true. And I don't want to take it away from him. And I do believe he's the real deal too. But you look at his weapons, Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, McCaffrey, and then when I go on the other side of the Eagles, I say, well, Hurts has the best offensive line in the game. He has an all-pro tackle. He has most likely a Hall of Fame center snapping him the ball. He's got A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and when healthy, Dallas Goedert. These two have a lot. They have a whole lot that's going for them. And they're both Super Bowl caliber teams. They are. They were right there last year. The Eagles were oh so close to getting it done. The bigger game for the Eagles was the Chiefs, though, because they lost the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. For the 49ers, this is the biggest game on the schedule. And it does mean a little bit more. Though it means more of the Eagles, and there's just been so much back and forth the whole week with the players and the fans, because the Eagles have something to prove too, because the 49ers, and rightfully so, we've been saying, well, we believe the game would have been different if Purdy didn't get injured on the first drive the 49ers had. The game would have been very different. I'm not saying for certain they would have won, but they would have pushed the Eagles, I think, right to the end. So what happens if the Eagles win? Well, they'll remain as the best team in the NFL. Your opinion of them is not going to change significantly. For the 49ers, if they were to win, then they would be considered the best team in the NFL and now the Super Bowl favorites. So who wins? I've gone back and forth. If it's a messy game, I like the Eagles. I mean, if it is, they're at home. I know the 49ers are actually favored. It's a tough place to play. It's a tough place to play for many reasons. You're facing the team on the field. You're going to have some weather to deal with, and it's one of the loudest outdoor stadiums in football. All that being said, and taking all that account, I will take the 49ers by 3. But that's not a confident pick. I'll stick with it. But whoever wins, it's going to be close. I can't imagine either team running away with it because they're both so well coached. There's just so much talent on all over the field. I mean, there's a reason why the two teams are here. They've drafted well. They've traded well. They've signed well. I'm excited There's been enough talk this week. Just want to get into this game and see it on the field. And I will take a few moments to talk about the Cowboys-Seahawks game. And can I just say, Seahawks, make those your uniforms. It's not even close. Stupid current uniforms they've had for so many years, too many years. And they wore those blinding neons last week, neon greens, compared to the silver helmet, the blue jersey, and the gray pants. The Cowboys win 41-35. And I expected the Cowboys would have won, but I didn't think they would give up and surrender 35 points to the Seahawks. And I believe it was Tony Gonzalez after the game said, I'm still not ready to put the Cowboys on the same level as the other teams, and they have their concerns. This was the first time in a long time they've even faced a challenging team at all. And the Seahawks have been going in the wrong direction. They have not been playing good football. And Geno Smith, he threw for almost, 350 yards in this game? 3 touchdowns. The 1 pick. And the reason Dallas has been so good at home is because they haven't played anyone good at home. This was the first team they beat with a winning record, and now the Seahawks are 500. And they've been going in the wrong direction. And I just compare, yes, the circumstances are different. Everything's different week to week. I shouldn't say everything, but so much is different week to week. The 49ers go in there in Seattle. They played their B game on the road. And sure, Geno's a little beat up. They go on the road, and they win by 18. And it was never a game. The Cowboys had to sweat it out, and they got almost all they could handle from the Seahawks, and they give up 35. I'm told this is perhaps the best defense in football. They give up 35 at home to Geno Smith. When I'm sitting there as a 49er fan saying, we surrendered 13, and our defense didn't give up a touchdown in the game in Seattle. Now, the Cowboys are not in the same league as the Eagles and the 49ers. Are they playing well? Yes. Did they get the job done? Sure. Should they have won? Yes. Let's see how the next couple weeks go. If they continue to play well, I'll give them the credit they deserve. But let's put them on the road. Let's see how they do in Buffalo. Let's see how they do in Miami. What are they going to do at home against the Eagles and the Lions? And they almost lost the game tonight. At home. And, the Seahawks, Geno Smith's a good story, but he's just not good enough. He's not. And I was surprised the Seahawks didn't try to upgrade more over Geno Smith, because I believe you saw the best of Geno Smith last season. For the Seahawks to be 6-6, it is disappointing. And the Cowboys, move on. They're 9-3, okay. But I'm still waiting to see on them. The Sunday night game is the other intriguing matchup of the week for me, and it's that game I wish we could have seen between Rodgers. I want to see Mahomes and Rodgers, and we've never seen Mahomes and Rodgers face each other. I want to see Mahomes and Rodgers face each other in Green Bay. For so many years, it didn't happen. And now that Aaron Rodgers is gone, they got it scheduled. They finally got scheduled right against Jordan Love. But the reason why this is interesting is because the Packers are playing good football. They have figured some things out, and it will make Sunday's game interesting. It looks like it is going to be cold in Green Bay against these two teams that were the first two teams in Super Bowl I. You have good uniforms. You're going to be in Lambeau. And I'm excited for a big day Sunday. Between 49ers, Eagles. Then you got this Packers Chiefs Sunday night game. Now they're going to be flexing Monday night games too. So we're going to have Eagles and Seahawks. That was flexed in the upcoming weeks. The game has its 49ers and Eagles. This is a big one, though. This is a big one because the 49ers do need to win if they have any shot at getting home field. I've almost personally given up on home field because who's going to beat the Eagles on their schedule? I mean, it was a kind of a fluke thing that happened to them. I mean, every great team has their, other than the 72 Dolphins and the 07 Patriots, they have a stinker against a team they probably shouldn't lose to. That happened to the Jets. That was kind of a fluke loss. The only teams that the Eagles could potentially lose to are the 49ers and then the Cowboys. If everything goes right and they do the little things right, and they probably won't, even at home. I don't think the Eagles are scared of the Cowboys at all after what they saw today. And the Eagles are not going to lose in Seattle. Not going to happen. A win for the Eagles pretty much locks up the top seed and home field advantage. So those are the big games, and we'll have a whole lot to talk about afterwards.